welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you had a good break. There are some fantastic views out there, and it's a lovely day, so I don't blame you for taking slightly longer. Well, welcome back. So this is our first panel discussion that we're going to have. It's on innovation. And in this panel, we're going to have a look at customer trends and expectations, and particularly what innovations are taking place as a result of those trends. So what are the innovations that are taking place, and what is it that we anticipate taking place in time to come? And we're also going to have a look at how the industry is preparing the innovation leaders that we really need for tomorrow. So let me introduce our panel to you. Our first panelist is from TripAdvisor. Now, I guess everyone will be familiar with TripAdvisor. This is a business that's really right at the heart of trends and innovations in this industry. But interestingly, they're also creating ever closer ties with businesses, and that is sparking innovation that we deliver our customer in the way that we deliver our customer experiences. So please welcome the Head of Industry Relations to TripAdvisor, Brian Payea. And our second panelist comes from the world of hotels. He comes from Rotana Hotels. So Rotana is a name I guess many of you will be familiar with. It's referred to as the Middle East's biggest success story, and it's got a very ambitious, very exciting expansion plan that I'm sure we're going to hear all about it. And innovation is integral to that expansion. So how do they do it? Well, please welcome the President and CEO of Rotana Hotels, Omer Kaddouri. Our third panelist is from a new business to the industry. It's Resources for Leisure Assets. He himself is not new to the industry, but it'll be interesting to hear what his business is now bringing to it. So this is a global management advisory business to the leisure sector. And I think the speciality that we're going to hear here is not just about how innovation is important, but how do you make innovation really pay off? So let's hear from his CEO, Roger Allen. Okay, our fourth panelist is from PwC. He's a partner and industry leader at PwC, and his specialism is in the lodging and tourism group. Now, there are over 60 clients in this sector, so I'm sure we're going to get a really interesting insight into what innovations are really taking off here and which ones are really working. So please give a warm welcome to Nicolas Meyer. Lovely. Okay, right, here we are. Let's, shall we start first of all by talking a little bit about our businesses so that everybody is familiar with them. So, Omer, could I start with you, Rotana Hotels? Tell us a little bit about Rotana and this amazing expansion plan that you have.
Well, we're a company born in Abu Dhabi. That's where our corporate office is. And we're operating 50 properties today, and we have another 55 at various stages of operation. We have 5 brands. The 5-star, the 4-star, the 3-star, the hotel apartments, and the residences by Rotana. And we've been operating now for 22 years, and we are basically in the Middle Eastern region. However, we are now starting to move out of our, I call it our comfort zone, the Middle East and North Africa, into Turkey, Africa, and we're trying very hard to maneuver ourselves into Europe. With some difficulty, but I need to talk to some people about that.
We'll get some help for you. But you also seem to be going east, don't you? You seem to be, and also countries that we might not normally expect you to go. Places like Iran you're going?
Yeah, we have 4 properties in Iran. Actually, they're all under construction, so we'll be the first international chain, if you like, to be starting new hotels in Iran, which is very exciting for us. And we're looking at ways there to try to leverage the hotel business. Talking to the owners of those properties, we're even talking about a possible startup of a hotel school, because Iran needs to learn to understand about hospitality. For many years, they haven't had any hotels. So we have some ideas there to join up with them. So I think I need to talk to Sonia about something.
Oh, right.
We'll have a chat.
Conversation to come.
Yeah, but also Sudan and Afghanistan and Karbala, Erbil, Baghdad. We do step into some of these difficult locations, but we go well prepared. And the problem is that every time we sign a hotel, something happens there. So we're not making the revenues we should be making, but it's coming. It's coming.
Why is there such an explosion of hotels in Abu Dhabi now? Because you're sort of right there in the middle of it, aren't you?
Well, there's so much happening in that part of the world. We were just discussing, Nicola and I, about how the governments are really supporting the hospitality industry and the travel industry by developing airlines, whether they're budget airlines or the Emirates or the Etihads or the Qatar Airways of this world, the larger planes, the bigger airports, the attractions that go with the destination. So that's why these places are busy and they need hotels. So that's where we fit in.
So become a sort of global hub, hasn't it?
That's it, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Thank you very much. Brian, let's talk a little bit about TripAdvisor. Everybody knows TripAdvisor.
I hope so.
Well, I hope so too. We won't do a hands up, just in case, but we'll just take it that everybody knows you. Global education and policy outreach. Now, tell us a little bit about that, if you will, and what you're responsible for there.
As you said in the introduction, part of my responsibility in industry relations is making sure that TripAdvisor is a great partner with the industry. When we were going through our growing pains in the first several years from our founding in 2000, it was difficult to provide resources and even be available to the industry partners. And as we've gotten bigger and had more breathing room, one of the things that we're very focused on is making sure that industry partners around the world in any language have access and understanding of not only what TripAdvisor can offer them in terms of managing their online reputation, but also how to connect with all those travelers. 315 million travelers every month on TripAdvisor. How do you tap into that using all these different resources? So from an educational standpoint, there are a lot of things that we have built, that we have made available, and that we continue to roll out that is such a challenge for anyone using them or being impacted by them to keep up with them. So the educational resources are focused on every level we can get them out.
Okay, but I'm sure we'll be able to sort of tap into those and see how well they're being used and how much we really use, or how much we could be using them. TripAdvisor now is just growing so quickly. Just give us an idea of the breadth and scope of what it covers.
So, from our founding in 2000, we had our first review in February of 2001. We now have 190 million reviews and opinions on the site. We were founded, our little pizza shop in Boston, to now being the world's largest travel site, more travelers than anywhere else. We are in 45 different countries, basically covering the globe, 20 plus languages. We basically have almost every accommodation, every restaurant, every attraction that we can find, and we add them as quickly as we can. We want to be that indispensable resource. We have 150 million people who have downloaded our mobile app and use it as an essential part of travel planning. And the fascinating thing is when you see it migrating from what used to be sneaking a little time at work on that big computer because they had that great internet connection, so it was a sort of a sporadic use of that technology, to now always connected, always available, and using it for not just planning a fabulous 2-week vacation to a resort area like this, but where am I going to grab lunch an hour from now, or where's the best place to sleep at the last minute, as I'm driving across country. Okay,
we've got a couple of questions which we know we've got on the voting on the app in a minute, which we'll ask people just have a look at. Just before we do that, one of the challenges I always recall from TripAdvisor some years ago was the accuracy of it, is how reliable is the information that we're seeing on it. So can we really start thinking about innovations based on that information we're getting on TripAdvisor?
So when I hear a word like reliability, my mind goes in a lot of different areas. And one thing that I think is always a question is, are the reviews accurate? Are they submitted by real travelers? Are they providing that kind of information? Number one, we have a huge number of people on the team that works to ensure that, and I think we've addressed that in the press and in meetings around the world. So that is one area of consideration. But I think when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about technology. I always like to point out that if we're the world's largest travel community, if there are more people here planning, it really goes to the research that said 98% of the people who planned a trip on TripAdvisor and then took that trip reported that their expectations matched the reality after they got there. So people have developed a way to consume this type of information. It's not just on TripAdvisor, it's not just on travel. If you're buying a book, if you're buying a piece of electronics or a car, you're reading the opinions of people like yourselves because you want the most relevant information. And because of that, people have a sophistication and understanding of how to do that. And even with a ridiculous number of reviews available on this enormous set of data, people are able to find the ones that are most relevant to them and have that experience. So when you talk about reliability, 98% is a great reliability number.
Yes, it is indeed, isn't it? Okay. Let's have a look now. Let's have a look in the at your voting, if you will. If you just go onto your app for a moment and just click on polls. And you'll get a question. So you're looking at it now. That's fantastic. So the question is, how often do you write or read reviews on TripAdvisor? So we've got one of three choices. It's either every time, some of the time, or never. I mean, so between us here, it's what's 94% of us here, and people also joining in remotely. Around 94% are either doing it every time or some of the time. And that's changing, actually, as we talk, but it's still not moving much. I mean, that probably doesn't surprise you at all, does it?
Not really.
No, it's a staggering figure. So it just goes to show how much people are using it. Okay, we've got a second poll in just a minute. Do we know how many people, what percentage of people actually write in reviews? Do we know that?
So the percentage of people who contribute content who are on the site is single digits. That's sort of an industry standard. So actually writing a review is not necessarily the majority, but we have 70 million people who have registered, become members of the community to do just that. So it's not something that there are people who have contributed thousands of pieces of information individually, but there's a technographics reality to this that you don't see the majority contributing, but there are a lot of other ways to contribute content, like voting, saying helpful, adding photos, adding forum posts, Q&As. There's a lot of ways to do that.
Okay, let's have a look at this second one. It's actually in, if you click on activity feed, you'll get a second question there for Brian, so we'll have a look at that. So that's to do with businesses and how many businesses use review sites as a source of information for innovation. So let's see if we've, well, I think we've probably got that just coming up at a moment. Let's see. But, I mean, do we know how many businesses on TripAdvisor alone? Do we know that?
There are 4.4 million businesses on TripAdvisor.
Whew, okay, that's a terrific number. So there we are. So there we are. So the answer is 2 million. So I think the 2 million overall. So the vast majority of people went for us. 20 million might have been a bit ambitious there, but people didn't fall for that. But do we have a sense, when you think ahead of years to come, do we have a sense of how great that is going to be, how great a number that's going to be as businesses use it more?
Businesses are quickly becoming aware and beyond aware. They understand the value of all the different social media channels that TripAdvisor is just one example of in connecting with the travelers through there. And there are so many new ones like Twitter and Instagram that are becoming so important, and having the global vision of their customer response and the ways to do service recovery, very germane to this audience, is if somebody's tweeting or if somebody's on TripAdvisor while they're still on property, you have an opportunity to reverse if there is something negative, or to amplify the positives. There's just so many ways to turn this one little experience into something that's either very useful or mitigating something that could be very negative.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We'll talk more about these sort of management tools maybe in a while and explore those. Roger, tell us a little bit about resources for leisure assets. This is a new business to the industry. What's it really bringing?
Well, it's bringing a fresh perspective on the wider leisure, recreation, well-being, hospitality sector. A number of sectors that are actually merging in many respects and being offered in a variety of properties, from mixed-use development to hotels to destinations. What we are bringing is, through that fresh perspective and really a no-nonsense approach, is a clarity from an investor's perspective on how all of these sectors can be offered within a given development and bring value to the investor and the operator, and deliver a return on investment. Because this is a particular area, and we talk about spa and we talk about wellness, where you can speak to many of your investor and they have no idea of what that actually brings to the property in terms of a return on investment. Right. How big should the space be to bring value to the property? And so what we're bringing to this particular industry is really clarity there, and really a rigorous approach from a financial perspective, but also a clear understanding in terms of the experience, how it brings value to a given development.
It sounds from an innovation point of view, that's quite a sort of complex area, lots of different facets to this. Is that right?
It is, and it's made more complex by the day-to-day evolution of the industry. I mean, people talk about spa, what is a spa, what is wellness? And then you see the merging of these industries with medical, with leisure, with recreation. So it gets even more complex in terms of trying to understand, where it brings the value and being able to measure that financially.
Yes.
So instead of saying, well, we need to have, let's say, a spa because a hotel needs to have a spa now, and by having a spa, it increases occupancy rate, double occupancy factor, secondary spend, blah, 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 blah. But the question is, by how much? What makes the spa or the wellness sector relevant? How big it should be in order to bring value?
Right, so it's very much the provision of spa and well-being with the brand, so they're operating hand in hand.
Yeah, and beyond that, from a wider perspective, because with medical being brought into it, recreation and leisure, it's not just about the space inside a property, it's also the space outside. When you expand to leisure recreation, it could be a beach club, it could be an activity program within a forest. There's many areas, there's sport as well that comes into that. And I think it's important to create a thread within all of these experiences that link together. So rather than look at it as an isolated space and say, spa, I need to build a spa, I think it's better to take a step back, start with a clean slate and say, okay, what facilities, amenities, services bring value? And then we'll let those amenities, facilities, and services define what this is going to be.
Right. Rather
than start out and put a kind of title on it.
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask?
Yeah, please do.
In terms of who's doing it today, Roger, is there anybody similar to are you starting something completely fresh here, or what's the closest to what's happening in the market?
I don't know. I think we're taking a very independent approach and looking at how we can best represent the investors and developers' perspective, rather than be, led by, I would say, particular companies in terms of what that space should be dedicated to. And so what we're doing is stepping in and protecting the investor and the developer and creating clarity there.
It's more depth as well, by the sounds of it.
Well, it's significantly more depth, because what tends to happen, these specific segments get lost in a normal feasibility study. I mean, if you look at a property development and look at the feasibility study, these particular sectors, you know, within the grand scheme of things, could be 2 pages within a 200-page report. And the financial elements could be hidden under secondary spend in the profit and loss forecast. So, you know, nobody has an idea of what that value is. And before you know it, that feasibility has gone to the hotel operator, a deal's been done, it's been passed on to the architect, and everything's been dictated and determined without there being a defined understanding of this specific area. And what really will bring value in terms of value to the experience and value in terms of return on investment to the developer.
Absolutely. Okay. Nick, tell us a little about how you work with clients. What sort of provision what sort of service do you provide to them?
Well, we basically have 2 types of clients. One type of client, which we call our lodging clients, are, for example, could be Omer. He's not yet, but that might change.
Working on it. Working on it.
But are your classical either owners or operators of hotel services? Sometimes also, you know, more food and beverage services to large, chain restaurants and whatnot. But this is one type of client, and the type of work we do with these kind of clients is really along basically their business value chain. So it will usually be either questions around strategy. Depending on where the economy is, quite often it's either about growth or saving money. So it is your classical strategy and operation consulting. And very often also topics around standardization, training. All the buzzwords come into there, so very often questions around employee retention, empowerment of employees, more efficiently delivering to your clients. So I would say these kind of services are, every single service is special and is different, but these have been around for a long time, these questions. The second arm of our business, or the second type of our business, which is more recent, maybe 6-7 years ago, it has really started becoming in our focus, are destinations and regional governments. Historically, even we made a mistake historically. We always saw these as, you know, little marketing organizations that, you know, print a few posters, go to a few fairs, and either we never realized or they have changed, but they have become really key strategic players in destination marketing and basically making sure that a destination pulls together. Is not just a group of service providers that work next to each other or even against each other, but that these are actually enablers at the government level, at a semi-government level, or at these DMO for-profit levels that can actually make the entire, it's what the ambassador said earlier on, that if you work together, you can actually have more for everyone at the end than if you are just individually fighting yourself. And that has taken a tremendous amount of dynamics lately. These organizations have professionalized extremely. They're really sharp organizations, you know, people that have a myriad of backgrounds and really bring a new perspective into the industry. And the collaborative models, as well as, you know, for example, what Brian just addressed, the views that you can have about destinations nowadays is just totally different from what it was 10 years ago. So with these destination clients and government clients, we very often work on refining their cooperation models. It's basically the question that they come to us and say, what can we do as kind of support organizations or support governments to make sure that the individual participants in our guest journey, if you will, can most efficiently deliver. And it ultimately is a global competition between destinations, and they want to be better than the other destination. So it's these kind of questions that really work the world over. It can be observed pretty much everywhere in the world right now. Fun clients, really cool clients.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that in a while, particularly in terms of some of the skills that you feel that the industry might need that goes with that sort of destination approach. Omer, when we heard from the ambassador earlier, we were hearing about different conflicts in the world and how that affects business. How you've got businesses in areas of conflict, haven't you, in Egypt and Syria and so on? You know, how's that affecting your business, but particularly in terms of innovation? Because some people would say that actually conflict or economic downturns can actually stimulate innovation. So how's it affected innovation for you?
Well, I think for the troubled areas, the most innovative approach that we're looking for is how to try to, help our colleagues in those areas, how to try to move them out of their trouble zone and bring them into some of the areas where there aren't any trouble zones.
Right.
We have to be innovative and creative in terms of when there's no revenue coming in. We've got to make sure that the cost base is kept in check. Otherwise, the hotels would have to close down. I think it also allows us, whilst opening hotels in these conflict areas as well, allows us to be very innovative because we're also starting from a very low base in these places.
Right.
Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, they don't have a hospitality base. So, I mean, just by opening hotels and having an a la carte menu and a nice breakfast buffet and check in and check out is very innovative for that particular area. So, I mean, call that basic innovation if you like. But actually, the trouble zones are really, it's really difficult. We're watching our colleagues suffering over there, and we're doing the very best we can to help them and try to support them. But we're all hoping that things get better so that they can get back to their normal lives. But as in innovation per se, it's not really time to be innovative there. Innovative in the ways that I've just spoken about, but no other. I mean, we're not looking at any new systems. We're not looking at any new learning and development programs. It's all about trying to save the situations the best we can in the most innovative way. So,
sure, okay.
So, but trouble zones, we're hoping, most of our trouble zones seem to be coming back together again. But like in Erbil in the north of Iraq, just yesterday there was a humongous car bomb.
Right.
One of the first in many years, and occupancy is going to be dipping again, and we might have to lay off a few colleagues, or at least try to think about trying to transfer. We have inter-colleague transfer into some of our other hotels nearby, but tough situation there. But we have to do the best we can. But we're very much in touch with them, and I think on a human level they see that, they appreciate that, and that for them is very, very important.
Right.
So,
okay.
You have to look at innovation in a different way in that particular aspect.
What other sort of trends do you notice in customer experience, and what's really important to people?
Well, I think we could probably spend all day talking about what makes customers, why do they come and book in your hotels. I think it's the digital platform. It's all about booking online and checking in online and checking out online and tablet management and enhanced websites and making sure your booking engine's got everything you need. But that's great innovation, but that's really, everybody's doing it today. So if you don't do that, then you're going to be left behind. So I'd like to think that with Rotana, we're keeping in line with what needs to be done to attract customers. We listen to our customers through we look at TripAdvisor. Online reputation management is very, very important. We take customers' feedback and we try to change things and try to look at how we can adapt their comments to so that they come back and see us. So I think the digital platform is probably the most spoken about. But I'll talk a little bit later about how I see innovation. How I see innovation, creativity, and change, because it shouldn't be just based around the digital, the online. There's a lot more to it.
Absolutely.
And it can be a lot simpler than that. So,
okay. Brian, what do you notice about the change in people's expectations? But so you mentioned mobile earlier on. How important is mobile and social media, for example, in the way that people sort of review sites and source information?
Hugely important. It can't be overstated. And what it comes down to, and I think what Omer was sort of talking toward is that all these things are important. If you have a customer base that is going to expect them, then you have to have it. It's table stakes, but it's not a motivation. They're not going to go to a property because it has a good mobile booking system. It's something that's expected. It's something that is just going to be required. And all of those things should essentially be invisible. It all comes down to listening to the customer and letting them do whatever they want to do through whatever channel they want. It's not about what we want or what the booking platform wants. It's like, what does the customer want? How are we going to make that as frictionless as possible? And the challenges associated with the growth in mobile, more than 50% of our business is now happening on mobile, is enormous because those devices are so powerful, but the screen size is so small, and actually getting from inspiration and seeing a beautiful photo on your iPad before you go to bed, to actually doing research, in a few minutes over coffee with your spouse, and then actually moving right into a booking so you can move on and get on with your day. That's what the expectation is, and that's a huge technology challenge. And actually accomplishing that is daunting.
Okay, and how do people use social media? So how do people use Facebook? What's innovative in the way that people are using this?
I think the travelers don't think it's innovative at all. They think, this is part of my life. This is the way I talk to my friends. I heard a millennial panel say that luxury is defined by the photos my friends have posted on Instagram. It was just an amazing moment for me. It's like, it's just wherever they are, that's where they're getting their inspiration, that's where they're making their decision, and you have to be a seamless path from here to there. So it's not about, oh, I need a Facebook page or I need an Instagram account. It's, what are your travelers doing, and how are they using it, without forgetting about your core base and who maybe never uses those. You can't put all your resources against these new technologies, because there's going to be another new technology next year and one after that. And if you go to your ownership and say, well, we spent all our money on our Facebook page and now it's languishing and nobody's there and it's terrible at booking, Facebook's not a booking engine, it ends up being a vicious cycle. And it's more about figuring out where are the best places to enable the communication and get them there as quickly as possible.
Right, okay. And Roger, who are you really sort of, do you find is really sort of taking up the whole well-being industry? Are they individuals, are they corporates? Where is the biggest opportunity here?
I think with a forward-thinking approach, I think that the future really is with how we serve the corporate executive, the high-profile traveler that is staying in the hotels, traveling constantly throughout the world, and how we can better serve their needs, not just from a stress management and making their stay at a property more comfortable, but actually how we can aid their performance through a total holistic wellness approach to their stay in the property. And that's not just about what happens, let's say, in a fitness center or in a spa. It's about, what's on offer on the breakfast table. It's what's in the minibar. How can we support their busy lifestyle and, make the hotel property better serve their needs. So I think corporate wellness in that element is going to be important. We have an important client in Dubai where we're looking at a very complex approach of bringing together traditional medicine, complementary medicine. This facility has the largest pharmacy as well in Dubai. The doctors, are offering everything from pediatrics to gynecology to physiotherapy. On the other side, traditional Chinese medicine. So it's quite a complex approach to serving the corporate executive, along with a dietary and nutritional advice as well, and providing the corporate executive with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we're looking at managing not just managing stress, but looking at how we can improve the executive's performance through a holistic approach to their lifestyle. So that, I think, is going to be something that we will see filter down into hospitality, and that's not just about hotels. It's mixed-use development. It's standalone medical facilities. In the US, we have a retirement home that's looking at wellness and well-being, and looking at, it's not just about, counting down the days when these people go to these places. It's also about, extending life and continuing the vibrancy in whichever way possible. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So
hopefully my children are saving money to put me in one of those places.
By which time you'll live till 150, I would think, if you keep going. Just while you're talking about medical, what does medical? I don't normally associate well-being with, with care and health and beauty. But medical, what's special about medical here?
Well, medical's coming in all shapes and forms. I mean, I can take examples from various projects, but in many shapes and forms, you're looking at the softer approach where you've got anti-aging. Anti-aging could be non-invasive cosmetic surgery. It could be plastic surgery. We have a property in Beirut that will be putting plastic surgery in there. Then you have traditional medical care, like in Dubai. Then you also have rehabilitation. So it's coming in all shapes and sizes in terms of the type of medical care. In the retirement home, there is types of medical care being provided within the concept of well-being, hand in hand with wellness type of treatments to better serve the wellness, well-being needs of the individuals.
Okay, all right, it's interesting. Nick, I know you sit on the advisory and think tank of the World Tourism Council in Lucerne. Well, tell us a little bit about what's being discussed there. What are the most innovative things that people are talking about there?
So this is basically a biannual conference, and it has a think tank, and it happens in Lucerne every 2 years. I think probably the most innovative choice that was made there at the time was how you combined attendance. So historically, most conferences either had all the owners or all the operators or all the tour operators. What I really like there is that the conference unites about 1/3 people from industry, 1/3 people from academia, and 1/3 people from government. And through that mix, the discussions are, of course, taken away a little bit from the, should we have mini bars? Should we continue with room surveys? Is London next or the next best thing? Where's the trends going? And it's much more talking about, as an industry, and really, with the government present, with the academics present, and the industry present, what should we do next? Because that's the big question. It's questions around air transport, questions around visas, which we've heard today already, and I saw it already, questions around how do we create opportunities for students, for people that wish to enter this industry, to provide interesting jobs, and ultimately, and I think that's a perfect valid point, so that we may all make a good living, feed our families, and have a meaningful career. So what I really like in the discussions there, it talks about the industry, not about the industry participant. The topics that are very strong right now are quite clearly around the war for talent. I mean, it's almost become kind of like a used up sentence, the war for talent. But really to talk about saying, well, everyone in this industry, and many of you that I know, we have these discussions offline. We say, well, we can't find enough people. They don't stay with us. They don't want to work in the kitchen, etc. So it's always day. And then turning it around and saying, well, what are we doing about it, except printing a nicer recruiting brochure?
Oh, right.
That's some scary questions, and then you can talk about a lot of things, but you can't talk about money, for example, right? Because paying more is not acceptable. So in these areas there, it's a safe environment in the World Tourism Forum where we can say, well, let's just assume that we would, for example, pay more money or promote people faster, or promote people or hire people not from the hospitality industry, but hire musicians. If you can hire musicians to become accountants, which happens all the time, then surely you can hire musicians to become front office agents if they're interested. So what I really like about the discussions there is it's a safe space, and I highly invite you to join it. It's open, where you dare to talk about what might need to be done and how it would look like. So it's very much scenario planning, and then bringing this back in the industry, then getting a big reaction that this can't work and it's totally silly. But slowly you see then certain things being adapted. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Let's just have a look at a couple of the questions that are coming up here. So let's take that top one there from Francois. It says, what about data mining? How will you use your clients' data to improve hospitality? So Omer, for example, what data do you have in which you can address that?
Actually, for us, it's going to be much improved as of 2015 with our new CRM system. And that's something that it's taken us a long time to put together. But the idea of that is that you're collecting data, and then you're going to be able to silo the data, and then you're going to understand a lot more about your customers so that you can reach out to them. But right now, we do have a very strong database, and we use it to target customers for various hotels, various promotions, we know what they want to pay, where they want to stay. So I think a company without a very strong database is not a good company. So that's why we're moving into the CRM model, so we can actually strengthen that and use it over a lot bigger space.
And Brian, what sort of management tools is TripAdvisor providing to people like Omer, which he could be using, which would spark some of this innovation that we're talking about?
So, especially with regards to data mining, I mean, everyone is drowning now in a sea of data. Big data is an overused term, and there's just so much data, it's so difficult to deal with. Companies like TripAdvisor, and then there are a lot of third parties who we license to take the data and basically synthesize it into actionable information, whereas a dashboard, how many people are looking at your page today from all of these different markets, and if nobody from that market ever checks in, then where's the disconnect? You can sort of use it for that kind of managing. We do a lot of analysis. We have such a complex page, especially on the desktop, that we can take small slices of traffic and do A/B testing, test and see whether a feature is useful or not, and whether the travelers react to it or whether it has an impact on our hotel partners, whatever. And when I hear about, should we make the spa bigger in this new design or something, I think about those kind of challenges. You can't do an A/B test. Well, you could if you had unlimited money. Build the spa, and if it works, you yay, or otherwise you take it away. You don't have those kind of opportunities. It's interesting talking from a technology platform that's online versus a real bricks and mortar. How do you actually test concepts, and is there data even on TripAdvisor reviews of your competitor who has a spa that you can mine and say, this is the insight we glean, and we see a different ADR, different occupancy rate at this, and this competitor based on the different attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I agree.
Let's just take one more for the moment. So there was a question, I wonder if we can just scroll back to the R&D. Can we go back? There was an interesting question about R&D, and it says, from an R&D perspective, do companies think, is this the sort of advice you would give? So do you find that people have really done their research and development so that when innovations, so do they have R&D on innovation, I think was the question, there it is. So do your companies have formal R&D function to ensure that you're out in front in innovation, or is innovation the responsibility of all in the organization, or something else, this person saying?
I think in my particular sector, there isn't enough of it, particularly when companies are drawing a conclusion on what the spa, wellness, well-being, leisure, recreation activities should consist of and what they bring to the property. There is no clarity there, and I think that the quality of the research that is provided to substantiate a lot of the developments is very, very poor. And I think, from the student's perspective, what they can bring to my particular sector is a very thorough understanding and an educational process that gives them a great foundation from which to build upon. Because, our particular sector has far too much fast tracking from, therapist to manager to all of a sudden to a consultant, and then advising on a multi-million euro investment. That's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And that, I think, doesn't lead to the type of innovation that this particular sector really needs.
Okay.
I think one of the questions here is it the responsibility of all in the organization or something else? I think it definitely is the responsibility of everybody in the organization. We don't have an R&D function, but every one of our VPs at corporate office, whether it's the quality VP, the sales, the revenue, the IT VP, they're all looking out there and they're seeing what's going on in the marketplace and where do we need to be versus the others. And like we were saying earlier on, it's trying to keep up with the next guy, but it's not about coming up with a brand new. I think one company came up with wanting to have robots.
Yes.
I think recently, I won't mention any names, but I mean how ridiculous that is, and how that's such a wrong way to be looking. You know, so I'm sure they have an R&D department; they could afford it. But I think everyone's involved in R&D in R&D in their own way in our company, and I think it's a constant. It's a constant, and everyone needs to contribute to the company that way.
But how do you harness innovation? Because the question was really about innovation, you know, as an R&D function. Is how do you make it the responsibility of everybody in Rotana to look at new innovations?
Well, everyone's in their space. I mean, every VP, every department is in their space, and they've got their accountabilities, and they've got their projects, and they've got to come back and show us what we can do better, or show us what we can do newly, and you know, we talk about it and we decide on where to go, and make sure that whatever innovation or idea that we're going to be talking about is something that can enhance the company's services to our guests or to our colleagues. So, you know, harnessing it is not the problem. I mean, it's just that I think one needs to weigh what innovation really is, Ross, and that's really where I struggle a little bit in terms of, is it innovating something completely new that nobody else in the industry has, or is it just enhancing, fine-tuning, tweaking, improving what you have? You know, because that's where I spend a lot of my time, and that's why I think I am where I am today, because I look at something and I'll think, how can I do that better? I'm not necessarily innovating, but I'm changing, I'm making it better, and I'm letting everybody around me see that wherever you look, there's always a different way to do it.
Well, we've heard about, you know, innovations with technology and the processes and how important that is. How do you, you know, we're talking about service and attitude here today. You know, it's how do you innovate there? What's the opportunity there to individualize service more?
Well, I think you've hit a point which is a very important one for me, which is the innovation of the softer skills, if you like. I mean, we were talking about softer skills. I think maybe there's different analogies of what a soft skill is, but to me, it's going back to the basics of what we're here for. I graduated from this hotel school in 1986, and I was given some great basics when I went out into the big wide world to work, and I learned about butchery and front office and finance and all of those things. And that, you know, I moved forward that way. So I think that innovation is not just about developing something that's brand new and shining and that nobody else has. It's all about, don't forget, our customers want smiles. Our customers want service. Our customers want to have somebody who's going to be proactive to their needs. These are things that we focus on in parallel, and probably more than that brand new, shining, innovative idea that's out there. And I think that's what brings customers back, because that's what customers want. And sometimes people get a little bit detracted from why we're really in business. Right. So it's a little bit like back to basics. And back to basics innovation for me is probably a very high, it is very high on my agenda. So that's why, talking about innovation, sitting on this panel today, I was racking my brain and said, what have we innovated? You know, what have we done? You know, and I feel a little bit empty that I haven't come up with any massive, major new ideas. But I do know that we are very innovative, very detailed. We like change management. We like to look at things in a different way, fine-tune and tweak. And our customers appreciate that. And that doesn't cost a hell of a lot of money.
Okay. Nick, if we, just come back to what you were saying earlier about destinations, if we are going to sort of individualize it and we're talking about destinations, you know, is it okay to talk about APAC, or is it okay to talk about Latin America, or do we have to individualize destinations more? I don't know.
Well, it's always okay to talk about them, but you got to kind of go at different levels of depth. I mean, each destination is basically a competitor, and it competes against not just the destination next to it, but against some other either substitute destinations or destinations that could give you an equally good time for whatever it is you need. So Montana, where we are here, yes, of course, they probably compete against Verbier and against Saas-Fee and against Zermatt, etc. But they also compete against, for example, let's take Egypt. Because in the winter, I might either choose to go ski, or I might choose to go do a beach and fun. And me personally, I've done both. So obviously, consumers are willing to be seduced by different destinations. So I think when you want to talk about destinations, of course, you got to take a very detailed look at what can a destination do and what is their competitive advantage, what's their USP that they can really credibly sell. And horribly, many of them say, well, what we're really good at is being everything for everyone, which means you're nothing to no one, because it's too large a segment. So you got to take a look at it locally, you got to take a look at it regionally, and you got to take a look at it globally. I mean, a destination like Abu Dhabi or Dubai, they don't compete against their immediate neighbors. They will compete against Singapore, against London, against Rio. So that's what's really exciting about this industry, but it also makes it complex, is your competition might be right next door or on a different continent, and you may not even know that it exists yet. You just realize that your guests are not coming back to you.
Right. That's real government innovation. I mean, the way that some of the governments in our region, some of them, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, I think are models for the world in terms of how they support the industry and how they use their muscle to leverage airlines, building hotels, attractions, so people come, having offices of the Dubai Travel Company, the Abu Dhabi Travel Authority around the world, so that they can let all of those countries know what's happening. That is, I mean, it's pretty unique, I must say. I don't think many countries do that, but I think more of that is definitely definitely required. Because
you say you were struggling for innovation, and everyone is always had the exact same reaction to you. Oh, I'm a consultant. I'm going to have to come up here and tell people, oh, the 10 greatest innovations in the last 2 years were, and I have no clue. Because a lot of innovation is not actually around products. Everyone thinks that if it doesn't have an app, it's not innovation. But the reality is a lot of innovation comes from collaboration models, how governments work with private sectors, work with airlines, work with tour operators, work with tech companies. Innovation comes around how you take data that might come from a TripAdvisor and integrate it into your tactical execution. And you don't see those. They are hidden in org charts and in budgets that are allocated by various regional government entities and so on. But what we can observe is they must have happened because the result is very observable. I mean, Dubai is a great example, Singapore is a great example, London is a fantastic example where we don't really know what the individual, well, some of us do, but most of us don't know what the actual innovations were, but we see that in the result, they have managed to differentiate themselves, and that's ultimately what an innovation needs to do.
Okay.
And that's very exciting.
But innovation, again, bringing that then from a destination down to individual properties, I think we could see better leadership in, particularly with a number of hotel groups when it comes to developing a particular property, particularly through the VP of hotel development, because a lot of the time the brand standards for properties are so rigid that they don't accommodate the local market or the local market needs. But because the brand standards say it's 200 rooms, all the amenities have to fit and conform to X, Y, Z, gives no breathing space to adapt and create a better product that would be more innovative, would be more competitive if changes could be applied.
That is starting to happen, though. There are some major companies today developing brands to fit into China, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it's, some of the larger multinationals have got a brand that's just perfect for China. So I think people are starting to see that.
But there's not enough of it.
No, there isn't enough.
There isn't enough
adaptability to customer needs to be done, whether you have brand standards or not. I mean, you need to be able to be empowered enough to make it happen.
And that's why these VPs in hotel development need to be empowered. Yes, I know it's difficult. You know, I've sat in on those hotel project management meetings, and literally the table looks like one of the same of the UN, with everybody sitting around with very important decisions. And it's very difficult. But in order for individual projects to be individualized, and I think to be more competitive, there needs to be, you know, that ability to adapt.
Right. Okay. We don't have a lot of time left, but I'm really keen to hear from you, Lee. You can help us out. We're a bit of a male-dominated panel here. So I just wanted to ask you, how can we sort of harness the diversity that you were talking about before the break so that we get better innovation?
Well, it was really interesting hearing the male panel speak about some very logical stuff here today, data and analysis and all that kind of thing. So I'll take it back to people. Good. And it was lovely to hear about Omer when you mentioned about what is it we're trying to do when we talk about innovation. What are we trying to achieve? And it comes back down to the experience. So consumers buy an experience. They don't buy a product. They don't buy the transaction. And we know that that's based on feelings. And that's becoming more and more pertinent in terms of customers' choices about directionally where they go. I think that's one thing. I feel compelled, because it is a male panel, that actually we know that women are more financially empowered. Those 51% of humankind are women, but actually we know that they make almost 80% of purchasing decisions, or certainly influence them. And I just wonder, actually, when you talk about the consumer and the marketplace and innovation, what are you doing to respond to those needs? That's question one. I'm going to be greedy and also talk about the internal piece, because I think to think well, to innovate, then you have to have an organization that's set up to respond to the marketplace. So if we know that the changing dynamics and demographics are there, and we've got this wonderful female base that are looking for certain experiences as well, what are you doing internally within your own environments to create a better thinking environment that doesn't build on kind of this tribal think and, you know, and group thinking, but actually to create more diverse thinking?
Okay.
I think the easy answer to the second one would be, we're working on it. Okay, so I don't have to make any excuses.
How many years?
No, I mean, in terms of what are we doing to research what our female customers are looking for, that's basically what you say, to make their experiences better. I don't think that we're differentiating between male or female at this stage. I think, but I think it's a great idea, and I'll start working on it as soon as I get back. But I think it's very important that we do that. I mean, you do hear about these floors in hotels that are dedicated to women, for example, and executive floors that have a section for women in because they want to have some space alone, or they want to have certain amenities in their rooms or privacy, etc. But I didn't go down that route because I personally didn't feel that that was right to differentiate floors for men and for women. But I think it's, by me not being able to give you a proper answer means that I haven't really got there yet, but it's definitely good food for thought.
On that basis, have you got a diverse team around you that can help you to innovate?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But it's just a matter of, again, there are so many things to change every day. There's things that we're looking at changing and building. But I think more time needs to be put onto this angle. But on the other side, the flip side, we were chatting as well about how the company does believe very much in having senior female executives in the company. And I think we are at the forefront of that in our region. And considering the region that we're in, I think that's a pretty good thing.
I have to reinforce that, actually. I've been very impressed by the work that you're already doing to support women, Omer.
Thank you.
And I just wonder about the rest of the panel and their response, because I don't believe in being divisive, but I do believe that actually it is about the essence of the customer experience and to respond to customer needs and know that actually women are very influential in this space. What are you doing?
We know what our demographics are, and we've seen that. I mean, from the day I started, I understood that we skewed more female in terms of the audience, but it's very much at this point the population. But I would also, say in response to your specific question that we're not worrying about what our women customers want. We're worrying about what you want. It's the industry is leapfrog. Whether it's an APAC or an EMEA solution, or whether it's a male or a female solution, it's like we need to know who the customer is and what that specific customer wants. All those things are part of the mix of who that person is, whether they're male, female, whatever else they're interested in. We have to get to that level of personalization, especially at the level of luxury that we're talking about in some of these properties. You have to know so much about that person or be able to intuit it. So we have a huge personalization launch on the site that says, we're not going to give you 500 hotels in this market to sort through. We're going to take everything we know about you and resort those and give you the ones we think are priority, and you can help us understand that. We actually just did a piece of research that published just a short while ago that asked 60,000 people, including travelers and the industry, what do you think is important from all these different attributes? And one thing that jumped out was that the travelers and the industry have a big disconnect about what the priorities are for the travelers. And the industry is very focused on what they called harmony, and it sounded like a cocoon, like insulating travelers from that horrible world outside the door, whereas the traveler's #1 priority was to get this immersive experience of my destination, and yet when you get there, they're insulating you from it. So, tying into those kinds of knowledge bits can help people realign and understand what's important to travelers in your market, what's important to women, what's important to you, and get that better offering. Doesn't mean changing all the decor, it means getting the people connected to what's important to them.
Okay. Just, can I also, the piece that you were talking about, health and well-being, the research that we've been doing with executives around inspiring leadership, and what we found are the key strengths. So the key strengths and drivers of success, both for organizations and leaders, are around emotional connection and competence, brand reputation, and also cognitive intelligence. And I don't just mean lots of intelligent people, but also how you use your intelligence wisely and leverage the thinking of others. But just building on what you were describing earlier, stress, health and well-being for the executive population is the lowest scoring. It's a big issue, and it's great to hear some of the responses that you've got around the work that you're doing, because I think that's growing more and more into a big issue for the future.
In response to one of your questions in terms of what do we do, it's very relevant for my particular sector to understand local markets, particularly when you're going into different cultures. And you have to understand cultural, borderline culture obligations when catering to spa, wellness, recreational activities. But you also have to understand habits. And you also understand what they have, particularly in emerging markets, what they have now or maybe what they will have in 12 months. And so you have to create developments based upon that, because emerging markets catch up very, very quickly. And so we do a lot of focus groups. We don't just look at feasibility studies. We have to get out there and speak to women, particularly the target market women, which may be executives, may be the affluent type, to really understand what it is they want, what they're looking for, and try to unearth things that they actually don't even know or have available on their market right now.
Okay. There we must leave it. Lee, thank you very much indeed. Time is very much against us, and I'm eating into people's lunchtime, as it were. But I must just very, very quickly ask you just one final question each, which is around the importance of some of the skills and capabilities that need to be developed to create these sort of innovative opportunities. So Nick, destination management, what sort of skills do young students need to walk away with in order to be able to walk into destination management?
Well, I think there's a large, of course, shared level of skill between your classical hospitality, hotel operations, operator, owner type of work, but it has additional elements, and I quite liked what the ambassador said this morning is you basically need to be able in these destinations to be a diplomat, so to bring various stakeholders together, to be the bridge and sometimes referee and sometimes really the boxing referee between, the providers, the local government, the guests, the local farmers, whatever might be applicable. Right. I think you need to have a huge amount of empathy, because most people have honorable intention. And even after 20 years of consulting, the level of the percentage of psychopaths in the workforce is really, really small. It's nice to blame people and say he must be one of them, but people come, of course, with their own interests and their own needs and their own agenda, and the ability, a very service-oriented ability to put yourself into their shoes and say, I might not be able to give you whatever you want, but I'm empathetic enough to understand where you're coming from. That's a skill that's very important. Just the classical curiosity in cultures, the ability to do away with a national stereotype and say, someone is going to ask me later today what I think about the Chinese tourist. there's about 300 million of them. And there's like 10, 20, 30 segments in there. So I'm really looking, when I hire people for these destinations or so, and it's people that are really able to have a very differentiated look at how a country's population is set up and how you can service them, how you can create a service offering, a value proposition for them. So I would almost say it's everything that is in hospitality useful as well, with perhaps an additional, let's say, level of diplomatic, because it's much more enabler, whereas in hospitality it's much more often you're required to execute, lead, manage, deliver. So that's perhaps a differentiator. And the destinations, of course, do a horribly bad job at marketing themselves as a viable employer for graduates. I mean, when I graduated from hotel school, I was totally taken by all the beautiful brands, right? I mean, hotel companies are brand companies, so it was, oh, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Hilton. I would never have thought of Visit Britain or I Love New York or Dubai Tourism or whatever it was at the time. So if they present themselves a little bit more and actually show to the students that they're available, I think those are awesome careers, or at least awesome pieces of a career where you learn a lot very quickly.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to be quite brief, all of you, if I may. No, it's okay.
It took all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's good stuff. Because you're a former Les Roches student, what attributes now, in your capacity now, are you really looking for from students that are going to help create the sort of innovation that you need in the future?
I think, for me, understanding how to work with people is probably the begin and end of the success of a career. You have to understand how to deal with people in every way, whether it's customers or colleagues, and be empathetic and understand the emotion. The emotional intelligence is a word that's been thrown around a lot. I look at that as being, would I hire somebody who has a great attitude or highly technical? I would probably go for the attitude, and then whatever technical that he doesn't understand, I can work with him to try to get there. But it's all about people. Our business is about people, 100% about people. Whatever systems that we have are great. But, you know, I would say that people need to get out into the industry to understand that you're doing your job through people, for people. So if you can find a way to understand that and get into the depths of dealing with people and dealing with problems and leading, I think I'd focus on that, on the HR angle, the human resource angle, the leadership angle, the being empathetic, understanding people.
Okay, all right, thank you. Brian, what sort of skills and capabilities would you be looking for?
I think one of the most valuable skills is just the ability to listen and to hear it and to take it in. There's a lot of people who are just very focused on proving how much they know, whereas listening is a bigger part of the task, and then synthesizing it and using it. And then the only other thing I say is, don't be afraid to take risks and to fail. That is where the real innovation is going to come. And if you're constrained by someone else's parameters, there won't be any innovation.
Okay, and of course we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship after lunch, which of course has very close ties to some of the messages. And just finally, Roger, how big are the opportunities in the leisure industry right now?
The vast, particularly because of the merging of the various sectors. And there's a lot of confusion on what properties need to add to their particular development that will bring the value that's needed. So it's a massive, massive development. And just adding on to the question that you was asking the other panelists, and maybe to the students, something that stayed with me from a young age was, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most of the time with. And if you want to succeed, surround yourself with the best, associate with the best, because that will influence you. So choose your friends wisely. And choose your panel wisely.
Yes. Well, thank you for that, but it's a bit late. Thinking about that. Sorry. But no use apologising now. No, sorry. Roger, thank you very much. That's a nice way to end. So, first of all, can we just give a huge thank you, please, to Roger, to Brian, and to Nick, and to Omer. Thank you very much, guys. And we'll take a well-earned lunch, and we'll be back here for our next panel discussion at 2 o'clock. So that's in 1 hour and 10 minutes. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Ross. Thanks very much. Well done.